In Unit 10 of my Developing Congregational Prayer Ministries course, I encourage students to email me questions that I might respond to in a video response. And today I'd like to respond to questions that were sent to me on April 20th, 2009. The first question being, when considering a method of providing multiple and varied opportunities for prayer, how do you view the pastor's physical involvement? And the student goes on to say, if we're blessed, there may be several prayer meetings going on in our church each week. That's a very good question. Obviously, a pastor cannot be involved in every ministry in the local church. But what I do believe is important is that the pastor have a high level of visibility as a leader of prayer in his congregation. Now, how can he involve that? Well, obviously, he cannot be equally involved in every prayer ministry going on in the church, especially if you're employing this multiple and varied approach that we're promoting in this course. However, the pastor can be a leader of prayer in the corporate worship gathering. He can be integrating many of these models into the way that the corporate worship gathering functions. And especially if he's conducting a weekly or monthly special prayer meeting, if he is the leader of that, or at least has a high visibility in that, then there again he is leading the way in the area of prayer. Beyond that, maybe an occasional appearance at these other various opportunities for prayer would be in order. But beyond that, really, the pastor should not be expected, his congregation shouldn't expect him really to be equally involved in all these various prayer ministries going on in the church. I would say that a pastor's primary responsibility, aside from the visibility in the corporate gatherings, his primary responsibility is going to be to a prayerful, spiritual, as well as administrative level of contact with his leaders, connecting with his leaders in the area of prayer. The elders of the church, church council, ministry department leaders, the leaders of the various prayer ministries. If there was a time on a regular basis, he could connect with them for a time of prayer. Maybe an annual prayer retreat. There's all kinds of ways that this can happen. Then he is basically setting the pace for the congregation, helping to set the tone and atmosphere of the congregation in the area of prayer. So I hope that answers that question. The second question is, members of my prayer committee are concerned about low attendance at our primary prayer meeting because some may choose to gravitate toward the other opportunities that we may develop. How would you address this fear? That's a good question as well. I've made a few notes here, and I've noted three things I'd like to convey in response to this question. First being this whole dealing with this question of the way I'm interpreting is, what if we water down what we're already doing, or we thin out the one prayer gathering that's already working very well because people are wanting to drift into these other things we have going? Well, whatever you start in the area of developing new prayer ministries should be based upon your assessment of the real needs of your congregation. If your congregation doesn't need another prayer ministry going, in other words, if you've got most of your people already involved and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of need to start other things, then maybe it's not the time to start a new thing. We have a lot of very doable and practical things listed in that multiple and varied list of opportunities for prayer that we keep talking about. But just because it looks doable or practical doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be doing it. Whatever you start should be based upon an assessment of the real needs of the church. Now, if you see pockets of people or individuals who are not involved in anything you're doing in prayer, then you may need to look at other opportunities and models. What would appeal to them? Remember what we've said about the whole reason we provide multiple and varied opportunities is because what appeals to one person may not appeal to all. What fits one person's schedule may not fit everybody's schedule. So it's important to have other opportunities for the sake of reaching those people. So, which leads to a second response I want to make, and that is, with these other models, don't target the people already very actively involved in your prayer ministry. Target the people, go after those people that are not involved. Because after all, the reason you're having these other opportunities is to provide a way for them to connect, something that's doable and reachable for them. I hope that helps. And the third response I would make is that note that many of the models in that list of multiple and varied opportunities relate to personal prayer practice. In other words, it's not going to take anything away from your corporate gathering if what you're promoting are those personal prayer practices that in the personal prayer life of the people of your church, you're encouraging and discipling them in ways that they can become more prayerful people. It's what they do at home. It's what they do at work. It's what they do on the road when they're driving. Those kind of things. In their private time alone with God. If anything, teaching them these other models and opportunities is going to encourage a more prayerful heart, and some of them, if not many of them, will get more involved in your corporate expressions of prayer. I hope that this helps. The goal here is not to water down what you're already doing, but to help to expand and build upon. So if you're perceiving, wow, we can see that people will leave and weaken what we've already started, then you as a prayer leadership team need to carefully weigh, well, is this the time to do this? Are we at a time when it's a good time to start a new prayer ministry here and a new prayer ministry there? Or another way of looking at it, are we willing at this point to lose 2 or 3 people to help start these other ministries? Only you as a leadership team can accurately assess that. So, which comes back to the beginning point here. Make sure that everything you do is based upon your assessment of the need and your discernment, I might add, of what God is speaking to you as a congregation. Don't just go down through a list and pick out things that look good. You could totally miss what God is really trying to do through just going with what seems right. Hope that helps. God bless you in your continued pursuit of the ministry of prayer.